It is going to be as writers, as readers, actually talking about and critiquing the story as we read it, as we interpret it, and our closing thoughts about the story and whether we'd recommend it. Um, so the first section of this is going to be first impressions. So this is one of Raichu's stories. It's called Three Wishes or How Scootaloo Screwed Up, which that's a pretty good title. It's all said and done.
Fucking
Literally,
caught my attention right away.
yeah, you were mid sentence as we were talking about doing this, and you lost your entire train of thought.
Yeah, it was an actual like legitimate question pertaining to a couple other things, and I was halfway through the sentence. I looked at the title of the link as I'm typing, and I instantly stopped at the word Scootaloo, and I lost my complete train of thought. Everything was gone the second I hit that word.
So,
That's like cheating for me. You know, if you throw Scootaloo in a title, you instantly have me reading for at least the first 500 words.
well, and that's a very good point because one very good thing about clickbait is that if you use grabby words, words that grab a reader's attention, grab your audience's attention, that is going to lure someone in to read it more. It's clickbait stuff that people do. So in this case, Scootaloo is a popular character on the show that's our intended audience. So when you see I don't know, Celestia versus a cockroach, or um, Celestia's in your bed, or like the Cutie Mark Crusaders do X thing. They're doing that because it grabs a reader's attention right away. So using that sort of clickbait is a good way to do that. But you also have three wishes. There's a lot of questions right off the bat. But enough about that's just the title. So let's not overanalyze that. This is a
Mm.
comedy mystery story that is teen. I'm really curious how you're going to do comedy and mystery, especially with this particular cover art. Um, it's almost grimdark. Um,
It definitely belies a whole darker side to this thing, and yet here we sit with comedy and mystery, and the mixing of those two genres is real iffy, isn't it? I mean, between the two, you're trying to work in a lot of like subplots and do a lot of background work, but then in the front, you're also doing a lot of jokes and shit to distract, right?
well, it's very hit and miss. Consider a show like Sherlock, or consider, actually, for that matter, some of the old Sherlock Holmes books. Like, there's banter between Watson and Holmes all the time that can be considered funny for a mystery. I don't know if that's going to be giving off this air. I'm not saying that this is going to be Doylean. Oh God, that
Doylean.
like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
I'm not as well read as you. You might have to, bring that down to redneck levels for me here.
I don't know if it's gonna be like Sherlock, but it we'll see. So the description of the story is deep within the Everfree Forest, in a tucked away secret lake, there lives a creature who is not quite fish and not quite pony. Legend has it that if you spot the creature and do not run away in fright, then it will grant you three wishes, but at a devastating cost. Scootaloo has discovered this creature, but is she willing to pay the price? And if she refuses to pay the price, then who will? The story was edited by a good friend of mine who does not have an account on the site, but is a good friend editor nonetheless. Okay. Um, it's always good to source your pictures. I notice you don't have it where if you click it, it'll actually take you to the source. It might be something you want to consider.
There's a provided link for a source for the picture right below there, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah, there is.
I
It's
mean, it's provided. It's still
no,
there.
it's provided. I'm just site functionality. I have a thing for keeping short, focused descriptions that get people in right away.
Mhm.
But it's not a bad description. It's definitely didn't turn me away. So that said,
I,
chapter.
I, would-
Go
I
ahead.
would like to say that I'm calling sea ponies, and it's going to be like genie styled, where Scootaloo makes wishes, but they're completely fucked up, and the last one ends up like turning the whole thing on its side.
I think that's very fair. I don't think it's going to be a sea pony. It could be something completely different, something original. I hope it is because sea ponies is a little bit of a cop out. But I bet this is a Scootaloo loses her parents' background story. I bet that's going to be that kind of story, and I hope that isn't the big twist. Anyway, the first chapter, the only chapter is called A Little Tale. So let's jump straight into it. Scootaloo collapsed at the edge of the lake. Her breathing was ragged. Her mane lay over her eyes, unkempt and dirty. Her cutie mark was covered by dirt and mud, while her wings buzzed in anger and fear. She glanced behind her. Then her gaze was drawn upward as a rainbow flash shot across the sky and over the lake towards the other side. Scootaloo looked back down at the lake, and her reflection stared back with tired and angry eyes. Okay, so that was our hook. Definitely interested in what's going on. The first paragraph of a story is always the most important. There's a little bit of lake repetition, but I'm definitely not out of it. Like the first, that's when you send something to a publisher. That's always going to be the first thing that people see is the first paragraph. Um, and there's a lot of curiosity. Also, you did a good job at setting the setting. We already know that this is after Scoots gets her cutie mark, so we have an idea of time. Do you have anything to add? Huh?
Description was pretty good. Description was pretty good. I thought I could picture it in my head. I kind of figured where we were. Fucking no indents though. That's the one thing that instantly jumps at me. No indents.
So, that said, indents are not mandatory on an online format. That is actually a online thing. You are not required to have indents on an online format if you do an extra space between each paragraph. But if you do indents, you do not have to do a space between each an extra line between each paragraph. So that's I like the indents personally, but so I'm with you, but it's not required as far as
It's
rules
just a
go.
personal thing. It's
Yeah,
just a personal thing.
yeah. So but you can't make a strike against that. All right. So here's the rest of this.
Well,
We'll do the rest of the story now. She sat up slowly. Her muscles ached from the running. She could barely stand, but she managed to sit up as she gazed out across the lake. She put a hoof into the water. A shock tingled down her spine. She could feel the lake. She could feel it watching her. A splashing noise grabbed her attention. She looked towards it, but only caught a glimpse of a green fin. It quickly dipped beneath the water. Scootaloo stood up and waded into the shallows. The plants on the door of the lake, on the floor of the lake, brushed at her legs. She dipped under for a second before coming up and shaking her fur out like a wet dog. The mud and dirt from her coat and mane as she shook out the water. Sorry, I missed a word. The mud and dirt washed
Dirt.
dirt washed from her coat and mane as she shook out the water. She pushed her wet mane back as she stared out at the open lake. There it is. It was again. So, okay, yeah, there's a little bit of grammar still. Okay. The fin. It surfaced and lingered long enough for her to see it this time. Come out, Scootaloo yelled, stamping her hoof a dozen times into the water, enough to create a splashing. I know you're there. The lake seemed to darken as something rose from the waters. The waves began to hit the beach with a cruel slap that sounded like laughter. Storm clouds swirled above the lake, and lightning began to crackle. The wind picked up the pace while Scootaloo stared at a dark shape under the waters. It slowly approached her. Yeah.
Hmm.
Two dark green orbs glowing beneath the water. Scootaloo flattened her ears back, but didn't budge. The dark shape rose from the water and hovered over Scootaloo. Its green, glowing eyes narrowed as it stared at her, the water dripping from the creature. Scootaloo looked away, but held her ground. The creature suddenly dove back under the water just as the lake calmed. The wind died, but the clouds stayed as if warning her of danger. The creature popped back from under the water and seemed to sit in the shallows. Scootaloo looked down at the thing. It blinked at her and sighed. I suppose this is the part where you want some sort of wish, right? The creature asked, motioning a hoof at Scootaloo. Well, lay it on me. Scootaloo blinked and sat in the shallows. I didn't think this would actually work. Few think it will. So you're one of the doubters, the creature said. It held out a hoof. I guess I'll answer any questions you have before we get this started. Name? Scootaloo asked. Call me Shelley. Fitting name, to say the least. And you're Scootaloo. Shelley pulled her hoof back when Scootaloo didn't shake it. You're here because you wanted to make a wish, right? Yes, Scootaloo replied. Such a gamble, Shelley said, licking her lips and showing off her pointed teeth. Suppose that the book didn't work. How'd you know I read a book? Scootaloo asked in surprise. That's how they all find me, Shelley shrugged. Anyways, it could have been wrong. I could have eaten you, my yummy-smelling friend. Yes, but you can't. Not unless I refuse to accept your wish or I step out of your lake. Correct. Looks like somebody knows her myths and legends. That's the other part of the gamble, that you should be serious about wanting the wish. If you leave, then you die, and I will find you, Shelley said, her eyes glowing a darker green. But what kind of wish do you want? Scootaloo stared into the water. Shelley impatiently splashed an odd fin that Scootaloo could not find the origins of in the murky waters. No wish is too embarrassing, Shelley finally said. I once had a pony ask me to remove his sexual diseases. Needless to say, I really wanted to clean my lake after that. I'm trying to figure out how to word it so there aren't any consequences, Scootaloo muttered. Oh, don't worry about that, darling, Shelley said, flashing her blood-stained teeth at Scootaloo. There won't be any. Just a price, as you should already know. But no consequences. That's genies, dear, but only because they're incompetent. Scootaloo chuckled. Every pony always liked that joke, Shelley said. Okay, I want to pause here for a second.
Mm.
Every pony always liked that joke is a very interesting line because that is implying that they are not alive anymore. And I really like that.
Yeah, it does pull that direction, doesn't it? It makes it sound like the others have failed in what this creature's been asking them, or asking through going on to.
It's true, and there's an air of sinisterness around that, and I've been trying to add more sinisterness to my voice for this character, especially
Mm-hmm.
since we're not seeing a lot of the character direction. Like, if we were looking at this as a movie, there's a lot of talking heads, and we're not being shown what the characters are doing, if they're rubbing their chin, if they're, folding their hands, if they're scratching the back of their mane, things like that. So, in a reading, we're able to kind of inject some of that. Um, anyway, we're just about halfway, so I'll continue on. Now tell me, what is it that you want? And no 1,000 wishes or anything like that. It's 3 wishes. Just hurry up. 3? The bewilderment evident by her voice. I thought it was only 1. Nope, 3's the deal. Unless you want less, Shelley asked. No, 3's good. Scootaloo laughed weakly. I would like to know who my parents are. All right, kid. That wish is a classic. What's next? I would like the Cloudsdale Orphanage to not shut down tomorrow. What, you got some attachment to that place? You look a little old still being an orphanage. Shelley's remark had some bite. Something like that, was Scootaloo's only response. I've heard about that. The lack of donations is going to shut that place down. It's quite a shame, really. All those orphans are going to be sent all across the country, and many will lose their friends. I also hear it was the best orphanage in Equestria. Those poor kids. But thanks to you, that won't happen. Shelley grinned. Scootaloo didn't respond. And I want to be able to fly. Scootaloo muttered. Huh, interesting. Normally Pegasi are supposed to know how to do that already, but I'm not going to question it. Today, your wishes will come true, Shelley said, rubbing her hose together. Now, about that price, my snack. I know. Just get on with it, Scootaloo said, her head bowing. I will enjoy this, kid, Shelley grinned. There was a blinding light, a high-pitched scream, and the sound of a large body hitting the lake's surface. Scootaloo! Rainbow Dash shouted, running up to hug the orange mare. Rainbow let go of Scootaloo and grinned. Glad to see you're okay. Where were you? Just talking to a friend, Scootaloo replied. So, Rainbow said, and rubbed her hooves together nervously. I'm sorry about what I said earlier, kiddo, about the whole parents thing. Really, I am. I want you to know that I dug them up and I found them. Okay.
We've hit on like three separate fandom things here already,
Yeah, but
and
that took it. No, I was willing to forgive that because those are the common Scootaloo arcs. Rainbow Dash just dug up a dead body. Actually, two dead bodies.
that's assuming that the two names that are mentioned are dead people or dead ponies. I'm sorry, I can't separate the two.
Okay, but they said I dug them up though.
That's still something that could imply you're digging up information. Like
Oh, okay.
the yeah, I mean, come on.
Sorry, I was really enjoying the dark direction this story was taking.
It's
Okay.
supposed to be comedy, damn it! You're ruining it. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Wait, hold
Um,
on. Where is the comedy so far? Actually, now that I think about it.
it might be coming up. That's why I don't think mystery and comedy so much mixes too well. It's because comedy always takes that side seat. You know, it never plays that main role. I don't see why it would take a front seat where it actually would have to be a separate tag.
Okay, so do you think that this is more a comedic twist then, since we're just over halfway?
That's what I'm picking up. But being only halfway, we could get slammed by a bunch of stuff as we go here. You
True.
know.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep going then.
Hmm.
Um, really? Scootaloo asked, interest tinting her tone. Who are they? Spitfire and Lemon Blush. Anyways, I've called them down to Ponyville so you can meet them. See, you were right. Okay. Great, Scootaloo said with obvious interest and excitement. What's up, kiddo? Rainbow asked. You seem different. Nah, it's nothing. Then meet me at the town hall later, Rainbow said, and then glanced at her wings. Do you want me to walk with you? Nope, I've got it, Scootaloo said before immediately taking off into the air. Rainbow Dash flew after her. Where'd you learn to fly? She said, astonished. I don't mean that in a rude way or anything. Rainbow Dash was cut off and surprised as Scootaloo suddenly tackled her from the air and onto the ground. She pinned Rainbow Dash down underneath her. Rainbow struggled, but to no avail. Scootaloo was just too strong. What? Scootaloo? What's going on? Let me up! She shouted loudly as she continued to struggle against the stronger mare. Scootaloo backed off, and Rainbow shot up into the air quickly. She frowned at Scootaloo, who stared at her innocently as if nothing had happened. What? She asked with a tilt of her head in confusion. What was that for? Rainbow exclaimed. Why'd you try to pin me down? What do you mean, pin you down? I didn't try anything, Scootaloo said, holding up her hooves in defense. I think you're really starting to lose it, Rainbow. Hello, Scootaloo, an unfamiliar mare approached from the forest. Didn't expect to see you here. You neither, Shelley, Scootaloo replied with a hint of sadness in her voice. What brings you here? You know her? Rainbow asked, pointing at Shelley. The green mare with a matted mane that hung in her face released a dry laugh. Scootaloo gave a small smile. Of course. I have a house on the lake, Shelley said. She comes to me every week for flying tips. Right, Scootaloo nodded. I could show you if you want, Shelley continued. It looks like you could use a drink. I'll make you the best pineapple punch you'll ever taste. It'll help calm your nerves. You look upset, dear. Uh, okay. Rainbow reluctantly agreed and followed Shelley towards the lake. Scootaloo lingered behind hesitantly. Ah, this isn't very comedic, actually. This is kind of a dark twist, if what I think is happening. Are
Hmm.
you reading between the lines that the price was losing Rainbow Dash?
That's what I'm picking up. But again, I'm kind of hoping comedy comes in.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
like I mean, I
That's
mean,
where the comedy tag comes in. If this had a dark tag, I would be sitting here like, oh, I'm so ready. Let's do this.
I mean, in general, the writing's pretty okay with this too, isn't it? I
um,
mean,
there's things that I would critique, especially as someone who's trying to become a published author. Um, Off the top of my head, there's some confusions with it's and it's with an apostrophe that's happening so far.
Hmm.
There's some dialogue rules problems, like for example, uh, let's see. You neither, Shelley, Scootaloo replied with a hint of sadness in her voice. This should be a comma at the end of this sentence instead of a period. Dialogue punctuation rules are a big thing. It's all about the technicals. Now, that said, hello, Scootaloo, an unfamiliar mare approached from the forest, where there's a period at the end of Scootaloo. That's correct. And people will debate for days. Pencil and I have actually debated and about having hello, comma, Scootaloo for dialogue rules. That sort of punctuation is stuff that is required in order to get approved to be featured on Equestria Daily. But in terms of dialogue rules, you just read that as hello, Scootaloo, rather than hello, Scootaloo. So there's actual like reasons behind it that I can't really knock it for. Other than that, it's a little dry. There's some talking heads. There isn't a lot of description of like facial features. We're being kind of told a lot of things rather than being shown as far as character emotion.
Hmm.
There's no like fidgeting or like facial twitches, moving of hooves, tail flicks, ear wags. Those sorts of things are those are the little things that newer writers don't catch make quote unquote writing great. But
There's little subtle hints to character actions as they continue their dialogue that you pick up the nuances on. Makes
right,
the conversation more alive.
because how do you think Scootaloo is feeling throughout this whole conversation we just had with Shelly and Rainbow Dash? Because if the answer is nervous, just based on the description that's going on in the actual text, that's not really there. Like we're not getting that. Like the most we got was Scootaloo replied with a hint of sadness in her voice. If we had her freeze stock still at the sight of Shelly and darts her eyes away from Rainbow Dash, or her voice quivered with saying right or something like that, those little things all add a lot into how characters are portrayed and what the mental picture turns out to be. So that's the feedback I would give regarding that is the showing more of those character actions rather than just telling there was sadness in her voice. Like how did she say it? Things like that.
Hmm.
Okay, so where did we catch off? Okay. Rainbow reluctantly agreed and followed Shelley towards the lake. Scootaloo lingered behind hesitantly. Come now, dear, Shelley said, flashing her red eyes at Scootaloo from under her mane. Rainbow's going to stay with us for lunch, too. Okay, Scootaloo muttered, following behind her towards the lake. Needs to be a space there. Um, the lake was calm as Rainbow stepped into its waters. She waded in the shallows as Shelley began to swim slowly towards the center before ducking under. Your friend's nice, Rainbow commented, splashing some water towards Scootaloo, who stood on the shore. Ugh. How'd she say you two met again? At this lake. Scootaloo muttered. There we go. That's good. Right. How'd she teach you to fly, anyway? Rainbow asked. She's an earth pony. Magic. Scootaloo muttered even lower. Rainbow, dear, the water's warmer out here. Come on. Shelley called from the center before diving under the lake once more. Come have some fun, Scoots, and stop sulking. The water's great. No, you go, Scootaloo said, and Rainbow shrugged. Suit yourself. She swam out further. Rainbow looked around for Shelley, who was nowhere to be seen. Rainbow's eyes suddenly grew large as she was pulled under the water. Scootaloo looked away as the lake turned red.
Like, okay, right there. If that was the ending of the story, that would have made it right there. That
I,
could be an ending.
I would really like that. Um, we are kind of left to assume that the orphanage is kind of okay, um, and we're also left to assume a lot of things that adds a lot of mystery, and you would have to add an art dark tag, and you would have to remove the comedy. But that said, I would be really happy with this piece. That said, the piece goes on.
Yeah.
And Rainbow Dash was never seen nor heard from ever again, Featherweight said scarily, a flashlight under his face. There were a few claps from around the room. Featherweight looked around and sat down with a sigh. I really tried this time, you guys, he said with a sigh. Scootaloo stood. I don't understand why you made me the bad guy. I'm Rainbow's biggest fan. I wouldn't kill her. Plus, I know who my parents are. I swear, you guys think I'm homeless or something. Scootaloo took the flashlight from him. I don't know them, Featherweight protested loudly. Scootaloo glared at them. Dude, she was our substitute last week. Apple Bloom deadpanned. Remember? I didn't think that was Apple Bloom. I didn't think Apple Bloom would say dude. I'm sorry.
I can't
Okay.
imagine her saying it. Like, not to say nothing against it, but Apple Bloom doesn't seem like she would use city slang.
Just slightly out of character. It's not enough to like knock points for though. It's a little thing. Oh yeah, Featherweight said and chuckled nervously. What about your father? Who's next? Scootaloo called out, ignoring him. What I don't understand is what the price was, Sweetie Belle said as everybody began to murmur among themselves inside the dark tent. I mean, it was never clear. Actually, I would have liked if you swapped Sweetie Belle and Apple Bloom's character, like who was saying what. What I don't understand is what the price was. Like that seems really Apple Bloom. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scootaloo was supposed to be a minion of Shelly. She helped her lure ponies to the lake so Shelly could feed. Featherweight explained, but Apple Bloom rolled her eyes. That's lame. An undead minion would be so much cooler, Scootaloo said as she handed the flashlight to Diamond Tiara, who began to walk up in front of the crowd of fillies and colts. Quiet! Diamond shouted at the chattering ponies. Every pony immediately went silent, and she smiled. Good. Now I've got the worst ghost story of them all. This is the tale of the haunted mansion, Diamond said, and every pony groaned. Diamond frowned. Haunted castle? Some ponies nodded with a smile as she began to tell her tale, all except Featherweight, who crossed his legs and sat in the far back, grumbling to himself. Mine was better, he thought. Okay.
There's the comedy. Game over.
Okay. That was silly.
It could have ended at that one point, but the whole thing could have been turned into a completely dark, grimdark, evil kind of story with the nice twist at the end. Then it brings this complete comedy twist out, and it kind of switches everything around.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think that really makes it a stronger piece, though?
Not particularly. I honestly think this could have ended on the grimdark, and that would have probably brought in more people to it. I mean, slap in some more description for meeting the parents, maybe some more stuff about the Canterlot orphanage and such, and I think you'd be good.
I actually disagree with that, knowing FinFiction's audience. On the general whole, grimdark stories don't do as successfully, or they don't have as much success as comedy on this site. So if the goal was to get a bunch of views, then the comedy mystery tag combination makes sense. If the goal is to do that, but if the goal was to write the strongest piece possible, I think it should have just ended right where we mentioned, and end it on that darker note. Because that said, that was dark, mysterious, and it was how do I word it? It was just mysterious enough and just fantasy-like enough that in concept it didn't go over the edge. It didn't go into the edgy zone. We didn't go into like the cupcakes, oh, blood everywhere, creepypasta type zone. That was a decently paced, scary story. And on that whole, when you take a step back and you show it as Featherweight's story, yeah, Featherweight's story will probably be better than whatever Diamond Tiara has to say. Sure, fine, I'll grant you that. But I think just that story would have been stronger as a whole piece. So overall, what I have to knock this piece on really is the showing rather than telling. You have a lot of eye movement that's going on in this. Like they look at things. There's eye contact. But we don't mention flapping wings. After the flash of light, we don't get any change in setting. We don't get to look down at Scootaloo's wings and she flaps her wings. When she pins, most notably with the Rainbow Dash, when she tries to tackle Rainbow Dash out of the sky and holds her down, that comes completely out of nowhere. It's just this huge twist that we don't have any internal character monologue either, where what the character is thinking. That said, under the lens of it being featherweight telling a story, does that justify featherweight making mistakes in the part of the story that he's telling? Because you
Hmm.
have a story within a story now, and if the core story has problems, that's not inherently the fault of the writer. It could be the fault of an unreliable narrator. Now, that's probably dipping into overanalyzation territory.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's. I mean, if we're gonna talk, story inside of story, then it's like, how far do you want to allow errors to, come through to, really make it so that character is the one telling the story instead of the writer.
Right. If the goal was just to make the strongest piece possible, then I think having internal character monologue, like letting the reader know what Scootaloo is thinking at all times, it that would have been really powerful too, because then she would have had to take a step back and wonder what the price was. She would have had to wonder if there's still a way she could save Rainbow Dash. You would be able to go into detail about how much it hurt her on the inside to take a step away and watch as Rainbow Dash is pulled underneath the water. Those sorts of things would have added a lot to this story, but they weren't there. Um,
Mm, I think that's where the tackle thing came in. I mean, it's not implied or really mentioned, but the feel is like Scootaloo is aware of what's going to happen, so this is really her last chance to be with Rainbow Dash. This could be like that final goodbye hug. I'm gonna hug the shit out of you, and then stuff's gonna happen.
did it really? Did it really come down like that though?
I don't
Um,
think it was meant to. I get the vibe for it, but I don't. It doesn't quite fit that area, you know.
so I'm highlighting that part, and I'll read it out one more time. Um, Rainbow Dash was cut off in surprise as Scootaloo suddenly tackled her from the air and onto the ground. She pinned Rainbow Dash down underneath her. Rainbow struggled, but to no avail. Scootaloo was just too strong. Scootaloo, what's going on? Let me up, she shouted loudly as she continued to struggle against the stronger mare. Scootaloo backed off, and Rainbow shot up into the air quickly. She frowned at Scootaloo, who stared at her innocently, as if nothing had happened. What? She asked with a tilt of her head in confusion. What was that for? Rainbow exclaimed. Why'd you try to pin me down? What do you mean pin you down? I didn't try anything, Scootaloo said, holding up her hooves in defense. Think you're really starting to lose it, Rainbow. So I don't know. There isn't any real emotion there. It kind of just happens and it's passed off, in my opinion. It's definitely odd, and it's odd for the characters, and it adds questions to the reader why it's happening. I don't know if they're the right questions that a reader should have.
Mm-hmm. It's like that could have been the setup, but the execution was a little bit poor on that part.
Yeah,
The lack of emotional detail in terms of what was going on.
right. Overall, going into final notes before this gets too horribly wrong. Um, on the whole, for this story, I think it's good and it shows a lot of promise. And as far as the general concept and actual story idea, I like it. I don't like that it's a story within a story. I don't like the ending part of it. I think that takes away from it. But on the whole, this isn't a bad piece. Um, I think with a little bit of brushing up on its versus its, which is a problem I always struggle with still. Dialogue rules as far as punctuation, um, and that would pretty much cover the technicals because the technicals aren't really kind of what makes a piece great. It's your first kind of step into becoming a better author. Now that said, the actual flow of the story and the styling, I think I would have liked to see more showing rather than telling. Like I mentioned earlier, with the facial features, tail wiggling, ear wiggling, brow furrowing. There is some of that in here, and it's a good beginning. But the more of that you show, and the more of the internal monologue you show, that's how you build characters. Um, that's not to say that the characters were weak, but they could use improvement. I don't think that this is a bad story. I don't think I can put on, I wouldn't submit it to Equestria Daily just yet, but it does show promise. What do you think, Milk?
I agree with a lot of your points. I think there's definitely some lack of description. I think that really Raichu should have hit more on the parents and the orphanage bit, more description there, more because like we're just left with that stuff. Like, oh, it's okay now. Well, okay, we'll just skip over that detail and move on to the parents. Oh, now we know the parents. Let's just leave that be now, and then we move on to the actual, the whole scene at the end.
Mm-hmm.
You could have squeezed at least another 5 to 1,500 more words out of that just in those two sets of scenes.
So probably a little slow down the pacing a little bit too, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But on the whole, not bad. I don't believe in number ratings, so I won't give one. But let me ask you this: if there was a human in the story, Milk, would it make the good HIE list?
That's unfair. You're like putting me on the spot.
No, I'm joking you, but no, there's definitely promise. Keep it up, Raichu. You're on your way to doing some good stuff. That's all I have to say. Do you have any closing thoughts?
It's a step in the right direction. This has definitely got some promise behind it. Basically, just work on the grammar stuff. Focus on more description. That kind of stuff. I'm not too wordy in terms of how I want stories. This Scootaloo's in it, and there's Rainbow Dash dying, so that's 2+ points for me right there. I'm a simple person.
Sorry, that's not a bad thing. I think it's a bad thing.
I'm a simple person with simple needs. Kill one pony, leave best pony alone, and we're good.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, then that's everything that we could. I think that's everything we can say about this story. Good job. By all means, if anyone watching this that isn't Raichu has particular stories that they think would be interesting for us to comment on or read, send us a PM or send a PM to the Good HIE list Gmail. And Raichu, I hope this was beneficial to you. Let us know how you think we did. Did we give your story a fair shot? Were we too mean to it? Provide us some feedback too. Thank you all 0 people for watching, but hopefully someone gets some enjoyment out of this. Thanks.